This is lesson 4B, part 2 of the effects of controls. Last lesson we looked at the 3 primary controls: elevators, ailerons and rudders. What do they do, how they function, and how to select, hold and trim, and attitude. Today we're looking at the ancillary controls. That's the throttle, the mixture, carburetor heat, flaps, and how to manage them while keeping the aircraft where you want it. The aim of the lesson 4B is to understand the effect of power and operate flaps whilst maintaining the datum attitude in trim. This lesson is one of the absolute foundations of everything that follows in your training. So get comfortable with the concepts here, and every future exercises will become much clearer. Let's get into it. My name is Sammy. I'm a commercial pilot looking for my first flying job, as well as training to become a flight instructor. And this is lesson 4B of a full private pilot license ground lesson series. By the end of today's lesson, you'll be able to manage the throttle and ancillary controls in flight and keep the aircraft trimmed and stable. That's a lot, I know, but it's all interconnected. So let's build it piece by piece. In lesson 4B, you'll follow through on your first takeoff and feel something that surprises almost every student pilot. The aircraft wants to swing left as power is applied. Why is that? The slipstream from the propeller hits the left side of the tail, creating a yaw to the left. As speed builds and the tail lifts, this tendency changes. Your right foot needs to be ready to anticipate and correct the swing before it develops. Your instructor will demonstrate. You can follow through on the controls and feel exactly when and how the rudder input is applied. Anticipation is the key word. You correct before the swing happens, not after it. The throttle is your power control, and the relationship between power and attitude is one of the most important things you'll learn in these early exercises. Here's what happens in a trimmed aircraft when you change power. As you increase power, the nose pitches slightly up and to the left. That's the slipstream effect. When you decrease power, the nose pitches down with a slight yaw to the right. The aircraft is no longer on datum. Your job is to hold the attitude using the elevator, stop the yaw with the rudder, and then trim out the external force. Your instructor will demonstrate this by trimming the aircraft, then reducing to idle power. You watch the nose pitch down, then apply full power. You watch it pitch up. Then they hand you control and ask you to maintain datum attitude through power changes. The work cycle for power changes is power, attitude, trim. Whether that's applying power, maintaining the attitude, and trimming the external force. So set the power, correct the attitude, and trim out the pressure. Quick but important note on how to physically operate the throttle. Move it smoothly. No sudden movement forward or backwards. Initially set power by sound and feel. The engine noise tells you a lot. Fine tune by checking the RPM gauge. Keep one hand on the throttle and one on the control column at all times in flight. There's a concept called the dead band and live band in throttle movement. The dead band is a small range of throttle movement where nothing really happens in terms of RPM. You move the throttle slightly, you might hear a change in engine sound, but the RPM gauge barely moves. So the engine isn't actually producing more or less power in a meaningful way just yet. However, in the live band, the RPM responds directly. Your instructor will show you this range so you develop sensitivity to where the throttle is actually doing the work. Power increases or decreases properly. In the live band, aircraft performance starts to change in terms of climbs and descent performance. Engines aren't perfectly sensitive to tiny inputs. There's a mechanical slack or tolerance. Fuel air changes need a moment or two to stabilize, and instruments don't really react instantly to small movements, so you don't see much real effect at first. The mixture control adjusts the ratio of fuel to air entering the engine. At sea level, you'll typically fly rich mixture. That's the control pushed fully in, so the engine takes in more fuel and less air. It's good for takeoff and climb. This gives the maximum engine cooling and power safety margin. However, for high altitudes, you lean it off to compensate for the thinner air. Your instructor will demonstrate the effect by leaning the mixture until the engine starts to run rough. You'll hear it clearly, then enriching it slightly until it smooths out again. That rough running point is the lean limit. Never leave it there. That rough point means that the engine is starving of fuel. You never leave it there, as it can cause loss of power or engine damage if prolonged. Practical guidance is to use the flight manual for the specific mixture settings on your aircraft, so don't ever guess. Carburetor icing is a genuine hazard in light aircraft. It can occur even on warm days when flying in moist air, and it can silently reduce or eliminate engine power. The carburetor heat control introduces warm air to the carburetor to melt any ice. Here's the procedure and what to look for. Note the RPM before applying carb heat. Select carb heat on, hold the attitude, expect an initial RPM drop. This is normal as the richer, warmer air enters. If there is any ice, the RPM will rise back above the original reading as the ice clears and melts away. However, if there's no ice, then there is no rise in the RPM, just the initial drop. So no rise means no ice. After the check, select carb heat off and note the RPM returns. Your instructor will demonstrate the whole sequence and then ask you to practice it while maintaining the daytime attitude. Flaps create more lift, which helps you fly slower without stalling. However, they also create more drag, which helps you slow down and descend. And that's why they're perfect for use on approaches and landings. But understanding their effect in flight is critical to using them safely. Before anything, check your airspeed against VFE. That's the maximum speed at which flaps may be extended. Look at the white arc on your airspeed indicator. This marks the flap operating range. If you're above it, you cannot lower your flaps. When lowering flaps in stages, the nose pitches up as each stage is selected. Airspeed reduces due to the extra drag. You want to push the elevator gently forward to return to your normal attitude, your daytime attitude. Then trim out the new control force so you're not holding any pressure. When you're raising your flaps in stages, the aircraft nose will pitch down and the airspeed will increase as the drag is now removed. So again, this time around, you want to pull back on the control column to return to the daytime attitude and then trim again. The instructor will also show you what happens if you lower or raise flaps all at once. You're going to see a violent, something that's difficult to control, pitch change. If you dump full flaps all at once or retract your flaps all at once, what you'll get is a sudden aggressive pitch change that can surprise you, destabilize the aircraft, and be hard to control. Especially at low levels, it can be very dangerous. This is precisely why we operate flaps in stages. It's much more controlled, predictable, and manageable. The work cycle for flap operation is limitation, operation, and indication. You want to check your speed limit. Select the flap one stage at a time. Confirm visually that the flap has moved, hold the attitude, and trim. What your instructor is really looking for is just you not just moving the lever, but whether you check the speed first, whether you anticipated the pitch change, and whether you controlled it smoothly, and whether you trimmed it properly afterwards. Before shutdown on this lesson, you'll also practice the cabin heat and cabin air controls. So the cabin heat takes warm air from around the engine exhaust systems and sends it into the cockpit. Air passes over a hot part of the engine, which is the heat exchanger, which warms up and is then directed into the cabin. Cabin heat provides warm air, while the ventilation provides fresh outside air. They're used together to maintain comfort and visibility. But one thing about the cabin heat pilots must be aware of the potential carbon monoxide risks when using it. Having a detector in place helps identify this very hazard. Let's bring it all together. After lesson 4A and 4B, you should be able to transfer and receive controls using the correct handover, takeover protocol. Taxi the aircraft at a safe speed using rudder and brakes. Identify the primary and secondary effects of elevator, aileron and rudder. Understand how control response changes with speed and slipstream. Select, hold and trim to the datum attitude. Manage throttle changes while maintaining attitude. Operate the mixture, carburetor heat and flaps correctly. Apply the work cycles. Select, hold, trim and power. Power, attitude, trim. These two exercises are the grammar of flying. Everything that comes next, straight and level, climbing and descending, turning, it's all built on exactly what you've learned here today. Come back to this video and lesson 4A whenever something later in training feels unclear. The answer is usually here. Next up is lesson 5, which is all about taxiing and ground emergencies. We'll take everything you've touched briefly in taxiing practice and turn it into a dedicated control skill, including what to do when things go wrong on the ground. Until then, blue skies, Sam is fly.